Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to welcome you just one more time to a stories written by a current prisoner with your favorite journalist, Tony. Man, it is such a great privilege to have you guys here. There's a lot of exclusive content, a lot of good interviews, video interviews as well, that are going to be dropping in these next few days. And as you already know, your boy Tony lost his channel a few years back. When I lost my channel, hundreds of interviews were lost. So a lot of these old school bangers, a lot of these old school gems will be dropping. The entire Diablo saga will be dropping this week. On top of that, I'm gonna try to get you guys an exclusive Diablo update. I'm sure you guys are gonna enjoy that. With that being said, I sincerely appreciate you guys. Thank you for keeping the show alive. I hope you guys had a great Father's Day yesterday. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the heat is coming. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Let's go ahead and do this.
My name is Dimas Deleon. I'm better known as Diablo. I have been in prison now for 35 years. My first 17 and a half years I spent in SHU, isolation, as a northern structure and as a high-ranking NUESTRA FAMILIA prison gang member, where I lived consumed in violence and in disregard for human life, most of the time my own. I am a first-termer to prison. I've been shot with Bertha more times than I care to remember. I was shot once with the 9mm H&K assault rifle, which they no longer use. I have seen homies shot through the neck and stabbed to death. I have seen homies die weeks before they parole. No, I don't tell you all of this to make myself sound chingon. I'm telling you my story so that hopefully you will learn from my poor choices and walk away from this lifestyle. Now that you know that little bit about me, how about we start with how I became the monster I once was? Because none of us are born with that much ugly. So yes, the monster I was created, and it was mostly created from all the wrong choices I made. And you will find yourself in somewhere in
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
and you will find yourself somewhere in my story. Well, I was born in Texas into a big family. My parents stopped having children after their 10th child, and I was child number 8. We moved to Califas when I was about 2 or 3 to Vernales, a small labor town, and into a labor camp. I really liked growing up there. There was a lot of raza around me, and I enjoyed working. When my brothers and sisters got home from school or from work, my little brother and I would run off and play on all the farm equipment and such. We didn't have to be home till dinner. My family was really close. There was a lot of love in our house. We'd get home to freshly made tortillas and a good home cooked meal. Man, just talking about it makes me hungry now. But trip, I also learned to dislike authority and to fear them. My mother, as well as other families and paisas who lived around us or worked with us, would tell these stories about the migra and about the sheriffs, how these people only wanted to hurt us and take us away from our family, about how they would take our women, kill them. They taught me what kind of vans and planes to look out for and what the sheriff's car looked like. That every time I seen them to yell out migra to warn everybody. My parents told me to run as well, because if they were busy chasing me in the fields, then maybe some paisas would get away. My parents called them comadres and compadres. So I would. Sure, it was scary, but this came from my parents. I hated the way they used to gather us up and throw us in the van, the women and kids crying, but it was even worse when they would raid our camp at 3 in the morning. They'd run in, kick our doors open, screaming. There were people running and crying, and again, they'd load us up in a van. I could hear and see my parents with documents showing that we were citizens. And every time I lived through it or heard about it, the more my dislike and distrust grew for authority. My family remained close to each other. I grew up wanting to be just like my father, a farm laborer, especially because I wasn't good in school. I felt stupid in school, so much so I started to think that maybe I was retarded, slow. I found out later that I had ADHD, attention deficit hyper disorder, which basically means I am too hyper and my mind easily wanders off. So I didn't like to learn like the other kids. but no one knew there was such a thing back then. So I grew up believing that education just wasn't for me. So I grew up believing I would be just like my father. Okay, now at about 12 years old, I was beat pretty bad by my older brother because I tried to stop him from beating his wife. He humiliated me. My father ran him out and his wife off, but my dad told me I should have known better because I know how he gets when he's drunk. So the only lesson I learned that day, besides consuming fear, is that violence is excused as long as you're drunk. So yeah, I began to drink, mostly to hide from all the fear I now live in. It wasn't much later, at about 14 or 15, I graduated from 8th grade, and a few of us farm boys got together to celebrate. Well, of course, I got wasted and stupid. I started throwing up all over. That didn't sit well with my father, but he didn't say anything about it. To me, that just meant it was okay. So I started high school. It was bad for me. I was really lost, tripped. I go from a school where I spent all day in one room with one teacher and all the same students to a school where I have to change rooms, change teachers, and with different students every hour. Half the time, I'm late to class. The more lost I feel, the more stupid I feel. The more fear I feel, the more I need to hide. And the only way I know how to hide is through drinking and violence. So I start skipping school and getting into fights. I eventually get sent to juvenile hall. I can still remember the look of disgust on my father's face when he came to visit me. That same day, he told me he would never visit me again. That day after visiting, I went to my hall and beat a kid up. It felt so good to release all that shame and anger I felt. I finally get out of juvie and start in a continuation high school where I meet the love of my life. Yeah, I love her still. So now I got a beautiful girl at my side. So yeah, and I'm trying to prove myself and act all acá. Well, soon after that, my father is murdered. Yeah, my world was turned upside down. They arrest these two gabachos. My family from all over comes down from Texas and so on to my dad's funeral. I hear my older brothers and my tios talking about revenge, and I'm tripping on this. And one of my tios shows me his gun and tells me, you're going to have to kill one of these. Now, I'm really tripping. I'm really scared. I'm like, what the hell? But I kept all this to myself. I figured I would step up and take over for my dad and start working. But then out of nowhere, the boss we worked so hard for, the one my dad was so loyal to, told my mother that we had to move out of the house we grew up in, out of the only environment I knew. Now, can you imagine the fear and anger I felt? I believe my family deserved better, so yeah, I felt we had been betrayed. I even blamed my dad. Why did he put himself in that situation knowing he had a family at home to come home to? Now, as you know, a man don't cry. He has no weakness. So I kept all these emotions to myself. Yeah, I kept them pent up, so much so I didn't even cry at my father's funeral. After all this going on, plus I'm attending every court hearing, I still believe in the system. They, they'll send these people to prison forever. The jury comes back with guilty. I'm like, yeah, that's right. They sentenced only one of them, to only 5 years for the murder of my father. So it was at that moment that I lost all respect and fear, and fear of the system. I continued to look for work, to party on weekends. Every time I was turned down for work, the more confidence and self-respect I lost. And still, I kept all these emotions pent up until I got drunk. When I got drunk, I lashed out. I got in fights. I even fought cops. I was put in the drunk tank and released in the morning. At this same time, I inherited the family car, a 1975 Monte Carlo. I put rims on it. I turned it into a lowrider. My mom gave me the money to have it custom painted. So I should have been hella proud, sitting on top of the world and happy. But instead of living up to my responsibilities, I'm just partying, fighting, and going to jail. Then in 1982, I get into a fight where I run into a solid poste head on and go into a coma. I come out of the coma suffering from amnesia. This is what my sisters tell me. I have a hard time getting back into a routine, but I do. The only problem is I'm following everybody else's routine, which is drinking, partying, and acting a fool. I get into breaking into junkyards, not because I need the money, nah. It gives me something to do. I'm always bored. I find this exciting, so I'm out partying with the homies, cruising with my lady, drinking, fighting, going to jail, striving to be accepted, and striving to remain accepted by those in my circle. Then I get arrested for burglary. This is my first time to the county jail. I'm scaredless. All over again, I got no alcohol to help me past it. Then boom, I run into familiar faces. They greet me, introduce me to others, give me the rundown. They say in here, we stick together. Don't trip, we got you. And sure enough,
This call recorded.
they hooked me up with new clothes and with hygiene, so I'm good. My family and girlfriend come to visit me on weekends. I'm feeling it. Then I get sentenced to 2 years in the county. The homies tell me about the honor farm and that I'll eventually go there. Okay, by now I have already been in 2 riots where I backed up the homies from Stockton. 1980 to 81, San Jose comes down to cruise charter way in Stockton. I happen to have been cruising también and joined in the riot. I did it mostly out of fear that I would be recognized as the vato that. We all partied afterwards and made plans to go to San Jose the following weekend and attack them. And again, out of fear of being the one that didn't show up, yes, I joined them. It was crazy. We cruised Story and King in San Juan. Again, I don't know who started it, but there I am, going right at it. It was so exciting.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
It was so exciting. I don't know how many times I was hit, what I was hit with, or who hit me. Finally, we all get in our cars and drive off. We get back to Stockton Park at Stribley Park, and the girls tend to our wounds. We drink, joke about what just happened, what we just went through. It felt so good to be one of them. And then all of a sudden, some homegirl picked me up out of the bunch. Yeah, me, out of everybody, and gave herself to me that night. Can you imagine how good I felt that night? Not just because of, yeah, that was off the hook, but to be one with them, to be wanted by a girl I didn't even know. Yeah, that lifted my spirits like you wouldn't believe. Okay, but like I was saying, I already knew some of the homies. And when I do go to the honor farm, sure enough, I know a bunch of them. Some of them are even my homies from Tracy. So I fit right in. I'm there kicking it with the homies. They start telling me about the Norte, about the enemy, the Sus. They tell me about the red rag and the number 14, XIV, about the Huelga bird, and how these symbols show that we are norteños. They also show me the symbols of sureños so I can recognize them. They tell me about the NF. And there's rumors that Pájaro and Jerry, who are also there with me, might be NF. It was like being in a summer camp. It was fun. My girlfriend, my mom, my sisters visited me every weekend. They would leave me money. This was a great life. I didn't have any responsibilities. I fit in finally. Yeah, it was great then. The homies got at me. It was right then that the homies got at me and told me to get ready and not to be caught by myself. And then out of nowhere, there we go, into a riot with Africanos. Yeah, I found it exciting. I couldn't believe how easy it was for me to get right into violence. So I'm wrestling with this Africano, and this fool bites me in the arm. I get so mad that I reach down and I bite a piece of his neck off. And then a couple homies pulled me off of him. Pulled me off of him. So I'm there kicking back, watching it. I'm watching more fighting going on. I see this Africano running up on Jerry from behind. So I run past Jerry and went at it with this Africano. After everything is calmed down, some of the homies get sent back to the condal, and I stay there with a few others. After that, I was treated different by Jerry and Pájaro. They kicked it with me a lot. My homies Goyo and Sleepy started to hit crank, and this was going to be my first time. I slammed crank. Oh my God. I fell in love with that head rush. The feeling was off the hook. So yeah, I went on a run. It was free. Why not? But still, I didn't think I was a gang member. All we talked about was that I was from the Northern Califas. Nothing more. I already had my first tattoo. It was on my girlfriend's name. I think I got it in 1981, a year before the county jail. My brother-in-law and my sister took me to one of their friends to have it picked on. Anyhow, the homie Sleepy Ferguson had a tattoo machine. He got at me and offered to put the tattoo Tracy XIV on my arm. And of course, I said yes. I was in my element. Looking back at all this, I have realized I fit in because I believed I was stupid. I lacked self-confidence. It was It was an easy life. I was a coward. I rather live in the sewer I knew rather than challenge myself to a life I knew nothing about. Okay, now back to where I was, which was learning about the Norte, partying and getting tattoos. Then in 1984, right before getting out, I caught hepatitis C. So they slammed me. They sent me back to the condal. I'm doing bad. I'm having it hard. Then I get past the infection and they finally let me out. I get right back out there to the calles and it's like nothing changed. I'm finding and losing jobs like it ain't nada. I got my main girl plus other girls on the side. I'm back to doing what I've been doing. Then out of nowhere I was greeted by Officer Hernandez. We have a history. Damn near every time he pulls me over, we end up fighting. He would arrest me, throw me in jail for the night, and let me out. So I felt like it was like nothing. It was just a regular day every time this happened with us. We simply disliked each other. I'm not too much kicking it with the homies now. Not by choice. Now they're busy living up to their responsibilities. Sure, I have them as well. I simply ignore them. I really didn't need to live up too much. My mom, my sisters, my girl did everything for me. My whole life I was treated like I was special. Not the good kind of special, the special like I was.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Especially after, like I said, my head injury. It was like I could get away with anything. And yes, I was for the most part uneducated, especially emotionally, which is why every time I got drunk, I would end up letting my fears out and pent up frustrations and anger. And yes, I used it to what I believe was my benefit. Of course, now I realize it was a very poor choice on my part. Anyhow,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I'm out now for about a year. Then one night I get a phone call from my sister telling me that this vato hit my mom. And there I go, running to the cantina, yeah. I get my smash on. I run right past the Judas and start beating this fool up. Then Officer Hernandez tries to stop me. As you know, we've already gotten into it. So me and him get into a fight. He easily puts me in a chokehold, and I get put in jail for the night. After my latest fight, I get sentenced to 6 months in the county jail. Plus, I just find out that my girl is pregnant. So I'm back in the county jail tripping on all this stuff. But I'm there with all the homeboys. So it all seems easy again. It's the same easy routine. I'm slamming crank again. Plus now I'm on the highway. Plus they put me on a highway cleanup crew. And if you didn't know this, but there's a lot of alcohol on the side of the road. So I'm collecting it, sneaking it back into the honor farm. And all the homeboys think that I'm off the hook. That I'm one of the fellas now because I'm doing all this. So I keep on doing this for a while. And then the county jail puts me into an education program. They got me going to college. So now I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling like I was feeling when I was going to high school. But out of nowhere, at me, hitting on me. It didn't take much convincing to start skipping class and going to their house. I couldn't believe it. These hyenas wanted a loser like me. So yeah, I was loving it. Then out of nowhere, one of my teachers had me stay after school también, and she's all over me too. So now I'm really feeling like I easily forgot the fear and all the frustration of life, including doing time, because it was so easy being locked up. So I finally get out. I'm back hooked on crank again, and I'm drinking a lot. I get out to my girl, my pregnant girl, plus a new girl. I'm 21 years old. Now this whole time I haven't forgot about the gabacho that killed my dad. A homie tells me that dude is out. So now I'm back to feeling all the hate, all the fear from when my dad was murdered. So yeah, I'm really using crank now. I'm running from here to there, hunting this dude down. Dude keeps running from me. So every time I miss him, I get more pissed. I'm on a hell of a run on this crank. So my sister invites me to go to a dance with her. I've been up now for a few days. I'm starting to hallucinate and all kinds. Well, that night I nut up. Yeah, and I kill a friend, a close friend. It was ugly. I felt so much shame and guilt. It was terrible, and I turned myself in for the murder. I bet you're thinking that was the honorable thing to do, or you're thinking that was stupid of me. I should have took off and ran. Well, remember, I got a child on the way, a big responsibility.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So the only reason I turned myself in that time was to get away from all my responsibilities that were coming. I'm so sorry to say, but yeah, that's who I was at 21. I just wanted to escape the responsibility of a child on the way, and the only way I knew how was to go to where it was easy for me, back to jail. Now, for some of you, here's where all the excitement begins. So I'm back in the county jail just 5 days after my release. I won't talk about my murder only because I refuse to victimize the family any more than I already have. Anyhow, because I'm back from murder, they put me in a suicide cell. At the time, it was a foam-covered cell, and I'm naked. The homies hear about I'm back, so a few of them come by to see me. I tell them to get me out of the suicide cell. They talk to whoever, and got me sent to the regular site on the third tier into an 8-man cell. And of course, all the homies stopped by with goodies and hygiene. They got me feeling all right again. You know, I'm coming up out of the shit, so I'm feeling like I'm on top of the world again. Then I was told by the homies that there were NF in the house, and that they wanted me to go to the hole with where they're at. I ask how. They tell me there's a dude a couple cells down that needs to be checked. So the next day in the showers, I beat this fool real good. And yes, I'm sent back. I'm sent to the hole, which is like 5 hallways with 6-man cells in them. I'm in the hallway with 2 brothers from San Bernardino known as Kmart Bandits. Robert Maz, who was in there for killing a sheriff. Some black dude that's also there for murder. I was really scared. I was locked up with murderers. Plus, the NF told me to come down, so I'm really tripping. I'm thinking I screwed up bad. So a porter comes by my cell to tell me, Lito from Stockton, NF is in the cell block next to you. And Maquillo, NF is in the cell block next to him. And that Gus, NF is in the cell block next to him. And that I'm supposed to send all my legal work and the breakdown as to why I'm locked up. I tried to act hard and question all this. Gus sends me a huila saying, send what we asked for or get off my tira. Even as naive as I am, I knew that meant or else. So I sent him my breakdown and all my court papers from every time I went to court. I started settling with those in my cell blocks. I started to fit in. Then I get a huila from Lito telling me that my door was going to open every day for me to grab a broom and go to his cell. And yep, that same day, my door opened. Right then, I knew this fool had power. We are all high power. I get handcuffed just to go to the shower. And here, this dude gets me pulled out to walk over to his cell to talk to him. Yeah, I was scared. So much so, I almost turned and walked over to the cop station. Yeah, I said almost. And maybe if I would have, I would have been home a long time ago. But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed the broom and swept my scare to his cell block. And that's what got serious. He introduced himself. Then he sent me to Maquillo, who did the same. And then they sent me to Gus, who told me that I needed to make a choice. That no matter what, I was going to prison for life. So I either go as a homie or I go as a coward. Killing an innocent person, okay, the choice was mine. Now understand, I'm trying to deal with all the shame and guilt of killing an innocent person, plus failing my family and not avenging my father, and for abandoning my hyena and my daughter, who was born a month after I got locked up. So life in prison fit me as a punishment. But in the back of my head, there was that thought that I would only do 5 years like the dude that killed my father. So Gus says, what's it going to be? Of course, I chose homie. So he tells me Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, go to Lito, go to Lito, and Friday, go to Maquillo. He also told me, talk to one of the Kmart bandits so that he can set me up with his attorney to tell Bandit the request is coming from the NF. I'm thinking, yeah, right, like that's really going to happen. So I tell Bandit. Bandit says, okay. And to my surprise, that attorney, Mr. Woodson, takes my case. Now I'm really feeling like these are the people I need to stick with. Plus, they are teaching me all the stuff I need to know. So I already feel like I owe them. But all they are doing for me, they are making me feel worthy, like I belong. But I still feel shame and guilt. I still lack confidence, self-esteem, and I'm still scared. But I need to hide all this. But I no longer have crank or alcohol. So what do I do now? So I took my pent-up fears, my pent-up shame, my lack of education, and turned it into anger. No, I didn't look for help from others. They would only think I was weak. I didn't look for an education. Others would know that I was stupid. So I threw myself into the game and learning all the weapons, how to make them, how to use them, and who to use them on. Lito was teaching me how to make weapons out of paper, bombs out of matchsticks, how to cut and sharpen steel. Maquillo was teaching me the rules on being a norteño, how no matter how many enemies there are, we attack. He gave me books to read like The Art of War and the Raza History. He taught me about being proud, about representing the Norte in everything I do. How no matter what, we always look out for each other, and how we are all about equality. That's why the Africanos are our allies and not the Gabachos, like the Sureños. And the Sureños have the numbers, but they don't have the Corra. That how can the Rasta be friends with the Gabas when the Gabas racist? So he tells me I need to start working out, that there are Norteños, there's Northern Structure, and then there's Nuestra Raza, and then there's the best of the best, Nuestra Familia. He says, one day you'll be one of them. So I'm picking up all the game I can. I learn and build my own crossbow. I learn and make a paper pedazo. I learn where to find metal, how to cut it, and cut a piece out of the wall, and how to make plaster out of soap and other plaster, and plaster the hole where I cut the metal out of the wall. Next, I need to be tested. So I get moved into an 8-man cell, still in the hole. So Maquillo teaches me how to get out of my cuffs by swelling my wrist up. And they tell me next shower day, do that Africano right there. They point him out. I'm beyond scared. This is a big Africano. They tell me he sneaked.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They tell me he snitched on a homie. So I pump myself up by working out. I put the pedazo on my shower roll. The cops cuff me in front. They're escorting me. They're escorting the both of us. He's coming from the shower, and I'm going to the shower. I come out of my cuffs, pull the knife, and jump on dude. I hit him about 3 times before I get cracked by the cop in the back of the head. I'm cuffed behind my back and sent to the single cell block again. I got props for my work. They told me chill for a little bit. They sent me hits of acid. They said, this is all what we're all about, homie. We always look out for each other. That's what it's all about. This was my first time taking acid. I gave a hit to everyone in my cell block. Yeah, I spent the night laughing and watching the walls melt. Now, one good thing about facing the death penalty is that they won't charge you with.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Is that they won't charge you with any other crimes while you commit. They simply overlooked the stabbing, so I had no other worries. After a while, I went back to the 8-man cell. I went to every court hearing, but I knew I was through, so I didn't pay much attention. I mostly went for the bus
Going
ride.
for the bus ride, but I was getting fed up with being in jail. I was getting tired, so I went to court, my hearings, and I asked my attorney. Was the only thing I asked my attorney was to make sure I didn't get the death penalty, and that was it. There was this one time my homie said I was innocent. I said, yeah, right. Like, I'm really going to believe that. But he kept putting in my head that, yeah, he knew I was innocent and that he would testify. So I said, yeah, okay. But still, and even in the back of my head, there was hope. Then I heard that this fool hung himself and died. So there went that hope. And losing hope or believing I had nothing better coming was my reality. So I accepted it as my fate. I had to be guilty. So I closed that door and fell in line with what was expected of me. Next, I get a kite asking me to make a knife. So I'm looking for a spot, where to cut, when to cut, so no one will know I'm laying there. No one would know. I'm laying there on this bench looking around, and I move my hand and touch something sticking out of the bench. It's a bolt. So I start trying to move it. It's a little bit loose. It took me a few hours, but I got it out. It's about 6 inches long, so I'm happy with it. I sharpened it to a point. It's good to go. Um, at that night, and I sharpened it that night and had it delivered to two brothers in another cell block. No, I won't say their names. They'll know exactly what I'm talking about when they hear this. Anyhow, about a week later, they stabbed another homie who went bad, and they crippled him. I couldn't believe it. If that's what we do to one of our own, what am I expected to do to an enemy? Then comes the thought, failed in booking that Africano. So I tell myself, no one will outdo me again. Can you see how twisted my thinking has become? And this is for a farm boy. Can you imagine the thinking of someone who grew up or was raised in barrio warfare? So like I said, I'm getting tired of being there. It's been 2 years now. I tell Lito I'm fed up. So he tells me, try and get the least time possible. So I tell my attorney to offer them a deal. He's like, we can beat this. I'm still dealing with all the guilt and the shame, and I don't think I really want to beat it. So I talk him into offering a deal. The DA accepts it, so now I'm waiting to be sentenced to 25 to life and move on with my new life. So both Lito, Maquillo, and Gus tell me, when you get to Vacaville, which was our reception center at the time back in 1987, when you get there, report to Big Smokey from San Juan. Tell him we send ours. Then tell me if you want to be on the next bus. They tell me if you want to be on the next bus, start with the cops. I said, okay. So one day the cops were trying to separate these two Indian brothers in my 8-man cell. So I started instigating and fueling the fire. The cops ran in on us. We fought back. I got choked out, but was able to break this one officer's thumb before I went out. Well, again, instead of wasting their time charging me with another sentence, they simply put me on the bus, and I'm on my way to Vacaville. Yeah, I'm scared again, but not as much. There's a few homies with me. We finally get there. The homies tell me, "Don't trip on the cops. They're gonna act crazy. Just ignore it and do what they tell you to do." I said, okay. And sure enough, we get off the bus, and there they are, some big corn-fed cops yelling at us to get in the line and what is expected of us. It seems to go on forever. They finally escort us inside, which is an R&R. I asked for Smokey. Some dude handed me some clothes and a fish kit and told me to ask when I get to the other side. So I get to the green side. This is my first time in prison. There's so much commotion. There's people moving around everywhere. I'm like, wow. They put me in a cell with Flaco from San Jose. He starts asking all kinds of questions. I'm starting to get upset. I finally tell him that I was to report to Smokey. So he tells me when we walk to Chow, we'll stop by his dorm. He starts giving me the house policies and telling me he's Northern Structure and that if I'm reporting to Smokey that I am also. I keep hearing these nicknames, so I decide to give myself one as well. So I start introducing myself as Diablo. It sticks. Everyone is calling me Diablo. I didn't think it would be that easy, But hey, it worked. I chose the name because I thought it would be intimidating. I also knew I would have to live up to it. Okay, so on the way back from Chow, Flaco takes me to Smokey's dorm and introduces me to him and to a Rascal, both from San Home. They told me the fellas sent word I was on my way and that Jerry sent saludos. Once I heard Jerry's name, I knew I was good. It was a big relief. Smokey asked for all my paperwork. They gave me brand new clothes and shoes. Again, I felt like I fit in. For some reason, it's very easy for me to adapt to my surroundings. They should call me, in fact, they should call me a chameleon. But yeah, it feels good to be around these guys. I fit in. Well, that's when I start learning about the rules of being.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I started learning the rules about being a Northern Structure member. That I needed to memorize the 14 bonds, the format. So now I'm finally a part of something way bigger than me, which is what I want. As long as I'm thinking about the structure, I don't have to think about myself, about my guilt, about my shame, or about all that I've done, all that I've lost, or of my girlfriend or my daughter, which I abandoned by living such an ugly life. So I consume myself in gang life. That was much easier than dealing with all my issues. So I'm studying and showing them what I know about weapons. They had me make a knife out of a plastic deodorant container. So in the cell with Flaco, I wait until after 9 p.m. count. I light a dry milk carton on fire. I first stretch out the plastic out, then I heat and roll the plastic, and I continue to heat and roll, making sure there's no air escaping, which is good. It makes the pedazo solid and less likely to break on you once you can't hear any more popping. It's done. Now because I rolled it into a point, it won't take much work to sharpen. So we're going back and forth with training. Then one day on the yard, I see a sureño on my yard. Yeah, I'm so deep into this thinking that now I'm thinking possessively about the yard I'm on. Anyhow, my thought is, how come no one is doing anything about it? Then he takes his shirt off and flashes his hood. I'm getting mad. So I see that it's a perfect time for me to prove myself. So I walk over and light this fool up. So I'm on this fool, then the homies pull me off of him and let this fool walk away. We walk the opposite way. Then the cops come on the yard, pulling dudes over, doing knuckle checks. Yeah, this fool gave us up. We get past it, but now Smokey and Rascal are disciplining me for saving dude. That he would have been stabbed had I not done what I done. So they taught me about following the chain command, and that I wasn't part of the chain. Yes, that was a hard lesson for me. So I'm there for about a month. Then Smokey calls for me and Gato from Salas, and they tell us that we will to Old Folsom, and that joint is run by the enemy. They tell us as soon as we get there to ask for Crips for help. They give me back the pedazo I made. They give one to Gato. They tell us that late at night to keister the pedazo. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means to shove the pedazo up. Now we need to do it right. One, so the cops don't bust us with, and second, so that we have a weapon to defend ourselves. The following week, we're on the bus. I'm so scared, but hey, this is what I signed up for. So I so wish I had a way out, but I didn't. So I sucked it up, hid my fears, and we get to Old Folsom. This place is huge and scary looking. So we're in R&R, and an inmate porter tells me, we've been waiting for you. We got something for you. And he was not being nice when he's saying this. So the R&R cop tells me I'm being housed in one block, the 5th tier. I forget what cell, but it's a long walk. It feels like everyone is staring at me. I can feel the tension. My whole walk, I'm waiting to be attacked. I'm like, yeah, these fools are going to kill me here. I finally get to the one block. The stairs are in the middle of the building. In fact, the stairs split the building in half, and everybody hangs out there on each tier, and I have to climb to the fifth tier. That's crazy. In front of all these dudes, I see all these fools whispering, or so I believe they are. If I'm attacked, I know I won't be able to drop the pedazo in time. Yeah, that of luck. Well, I get to the fifth tier and I find my cell. Just my luck. They put me in a cell with the student.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
These cells are small. I get in the cell and dude won't shut up. He keeps telling me about his family and showing me pictures. I'm like, damn. I'm trying to figure out when it would a good time to drop the pedazo. I finally get tired of this dude. It's late, so I crash. In the morning, I woke up startled. Dude is already up. He looks like he's been up all night. So I finish brushing my teeth. Dude looks at me, and for some reason, I knew this dude was sizing me up. Yup, we went at it. It seemed like we were at it for hours. I finally got him on the ground. I banged his head under a few different times. He's out. Then the doors rang for breakfast. I washed up, got dressed, and headed out. I still couldn't drop the pedazo. I was either too scared or too nervous. And yeah,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
now I know everyone is staring at me. I go eat breakfast. It is served on metal trays. I'm like, okay, here's my weapon. It is real food, not the crap they serve us nowadays. It's a lot, and you can ask for more. So I make it through breakfast, but I know everybody knows about my selling. So I go looking for a crip to ask for help. Okay, so I find a cripo. I told him, look, I'm a norteño and I need some steel. He tells me, wait here, don't trip. So I wait and wait and wait. I'm like, damn, these fools are going to catch up to me before I get this pedazo. Finally, I see him on his way. But I also notice cops behind him, so I don't say nada. Then out of nowhere, he turns around, looks at the sergeants, looks at the cops, points at me, and says, "That's him." So they cuff me up and take me to the sergeant's office. And now they're grilling me, yelling at me. I keep my mouth shut. They threaten to release me. I continue playing the ignorant role. They release me, but they move me to the third tier, in with a flaco from San Jose. He says he doesn't play politics. In my eyes, there's no such thing, but I keep it to myself. I fit in with the Bulldogs, so I'm hiding amongst them. I pretend to be one of them. I'm able to fit in real easy, and things seem to be working in my favor. Like this is my fate again. And I remember verses in the Bible stating things like God knew what I would become way before I was born. Now, if this is true, then it is my fate. And if this is my fate, then who am I to try and change it? And if that's the case, then there's no hope. I am going to die in prison. Now get this. I have been slowly falling victim to attitude. With every failure, with every loss, with the knowledge that eventually my girl will give herself to another, with the
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
with the knowledge that my daughter will eventually call another man dad, yes, I hide these emotions, and with it grows an attitude. So much so that by now I'm living a suicidal lifestyle. I'm no longer caring about personal injury. I'm also punishing myself psychologically for becoming the same monster that killed my father. Every time I stab a sureño by the stairs, everybody runs. So I run with them, and I get away with it. And every time I get away with it, the deeper I fall into believing this is my life. So I do a few more stickings and get away with it. But they lock us down. I remember Lito telling me to wrap my towel around my neck and part of my head when I'm escorted to the shower on shower days. So I do. Now, by the time I get to the shower, I felt like 4 to 5 darts hit me. I also remember being told to clean those wounds really good because the darts are soaked. So I do I do. It's painful, but now I still have to go back to my cell. And again, so now I have to clean my other side this last about a week and a half. I'm going back and forth, getting darted, trying to get speared. They're trying to spear me. They're trying to throw bombs at me. It's ugly. I'm having to clean myself. My body's getting swollen from all these little attacks. So finally, I get sent to New Folsom because it's barely opening up. I get there, and finally, there's Norteños in the building, and they're on the yard with me. So I go to yard. We're all having juntas and getting to know each other, and I can see more Norteños take charge. I'm listening and living up to